Who says that lightning doesn't strike twice? On this channel, lightning can strike not only once, but 2 and even 3 times in the same place. Join me as we look at a few more funny Heritage Unit fails and come face to face with more familiar locomotives. I'm Railfan AC, and you're watching Trains in the 21st Century. The dictionary defines hodgepodge as a confused mixture. I define it as a great start to 2020. This video is the start of something new, or at least something a little bit different from the status quo. It's also the start of a second 5-year documentary, although technically much of the documenting has already been done. Until now, we've only covered bits and pieces of what's been recorded. Now we begin filling in the gaps and missing pieces as we get closer to our history series and the summer tour of 2020. Technically, we started this new documentary back in video T-139 with rail fanning then and now. Now we can finally pick up where we left off and maybe even incorporate a few new ideas and concepts along the way. Ideas such as making this particular series something of a journal/vlog of past and present railroading with maybe a little behind the scenes action sprinkled in. You'll find these vlog type hodgepodge then and now videos on the homepage in the playlist of the same name. To start things off, several people have asked me exactly where the new Delaware-Lackawanna engine house is located. This aerial diagram shows us the way. You see that big triangular shaped grassy area to the left? That's where the building is located. It's right there. Something else worth mentioning, you see that gray construction area? That's an apartment complex in its beginning stages. You can see the finished project from this view from Von Storch Avenue. In a ground level view that you've seen before, we can see the old Green Ridge Yard as it looked back in 2014. You see those old tank cars on the right? We'll come back to those in a few minutes. To our immediate interest is that track curving off to the left. It's a rarely used industrial spur. Back when these aerials were taken, you can see that the spur was in regular use. Getting up close, now in 2019, we can see exactly where the boxcar was spotted. That big white door down from the dock is where I'm guessing the loads were taken. This business is something of an agricultural distributor which receives things like fertilizers and soils. At least that's what it looked like from the packages they received. Moving back up to the tracks, we see those derelict tank cars that we talked about along with 4 boxcars. The boxcars disappeared long ago, but the tank cars remained all the way up until the yard was remodeled just recently. On another day, a lone TTX boxcar occupies the newly remodeled yard. That wavy S-track is the downward industrial spur, and you see that rock pile back there? That's about where the tank cars were sitting. I chose to open this video in darkness as it represents the unknown, which is very metaphorical of 2020 and the 4 years to come. With changes taking place on the railroad seemingly by the month, it's hard to get a firm grasp on anything when the sand's constantly shifting under your feet. Here in northeastern Pennsylvania, there are several events unfolding. On the Reading and Northern, years of anticipation are finally coming to fruition with the opening of the new Lehigh River Bridge at the NESQUEHONING junction near the town of Jim Thorpe. According to the railroad, the construction of this new bridge will permit the progressive movement of trains running between Reading and the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area and will cut the travel time for freight shipments over the length of the system by as much as 1 day. The new bridge, which is being built on a segment of track that connects 2 R&N divisions, will provide the railroad with an efficient and safe north-south route connecting the Philadelphia region to New England and eastern Canada. The rumor is that the R&N will offer the use of this route to the Norfolk Southern, who already uses part of the R&N's mainline track today. It's also being touted as the fastest and most economical route into the Marcellus Shale territory in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it will assist in the development of the Port of Philadelphia, allowing unit trains of double-stacked intermodal containers to flow in and out of the port to various points in northeastern United States and Canada. At present, the RNN consists of two divisions, its Lehigh Division, which runs from the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area south to about Jim Thorpe, and the Reading Division, which runs from about Jim Thorpe to Reading, Pennsylvania. The new bridge will allow a Reading-based crew to make the 230-mile round trip to Wilkes-Barre and back in 10 hours. Until the new bridge, trains had to change direction in Jim Thorpe to continue to their destinations in either direction. The $14 million bridge was paid for in part with a $10 million grant from the state and is located on a former Conrail route that was once part of the Lehigh Valley. In another part of the RNN system on the Reading Railroad Division side sits the small town of CRESSONA. Not far from Route 61 and the town of Schuylkill Haven, CRESSONA is the embodiment of the moniker Coal Country. It's also pure ex-Reading Railroad territory that fell under the control of Conrail on Sea Day, April 1st, 1976. Like many railroads, the Reading and Northern earns a little extra revenue by storing cars and has these DPRX tankers in storage all over its system. Since 2012, Trinity Rail and ACF have built thousands of 31,000-gallon crude oil tank cars to meet the growing needs of the oil industry. Mile-long unit trains with 100-plus cars are crisscrossing the United States and Canada every day to deliver crude oil from the oil fields of North Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana to refineries on the East, Gulf, and West Coasts. The Trinity Rail tank car is easily recognizable by its unique trapezoid-shaped end shields. The Deep Rock Refining Company reporting mark DPRX and Trinity Industries Leasing Company reporting mark TILX are two of the most common road names found on today's cars. Our state of Pennsylvania has approximately 5,600 miles of freight railroad lines that are operated by about 65 railroads. Pennsylvania has more short lines than any other state in the nation. In video T-139, we talked about some of the railroad grants issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation in 2018. In 2019, PennDOT approved 26 additional freight rail improvement projects that it says will improve freight mobility while creating and sustaining more than 390 jobs. During 2019, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation issued $40 million in state grants for various railroad projects. A state-funded project that got my attention is in Northumberland County. The North Shore Railroad received $813,000 to construct a 1,350-foot track and install 3 turnouts to develop a multi-purpose transload site. The area where the new track and transload will be built is shown here in Danville on the former Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Bloomsburg branch, aka the Bloom. The Bloom began its existence as the Lackawanna and Bloomsburg Railroad in 1852. Its original charter allowed construction as far as Bloomsburg with a possible extension to Danville, Pennsylvania. A later amendment to the charter permitted construction as far south as Sunbury. When completed, the line connected with the Lackawanna main line just west of Bridge 60 and proceeded in a generally southwest direction through Taylor and Old Forge, eventually reaching the Lehigh Valley's Coxton Yard in Pittston. After crossing the Susquehanna River, it proceeded along the Susquehanna to reach Kingston, Berwick, Bloomsburg, Danville, Rupert, and Northumberland. Along the way, the DL&W crossed over the Susquehanna River again to access some properties in Luzerne County in Hanover Township and Nanticoke. These properties are known as Concrete City today and have long since been abandoned. Further west, the line provided interchange with the Reading Railroad in Rupert and Northumberland prior to the advent of Conrail. The Conrail merger in 1976 resulted in the closure of the Reading Railroad's Rupert Yard and the abandonment of the Reading line through Catawissa, Danville, and into Milton at MU Tower. The abandoned Reading Railroad's Bloomsburg Branch Bridge for the line that ran to Benton is still around today, behind us, and the venerable Rupert Cover Bridge, which, as you can see, is still in use today. The Bloom continued to operate after the Erie-Lackawanna merger and continued interchanging with the Reading Railroad and the Pennsylvania Railroad / Penn Central until Conrail in 1976. When Conrail took over most of the Erie-Lackawanna in northeastern Pennsylvania, operations on the Bloom changed drastically. Conrail operated the line between Beach Haven and Northumberland and the west end between Kingston and Scranton on the east end. The part between Kingston and Beach Haven was abandoned and ripped out shortly after Conrail began. Today, the North Shore operates the west end and the L&S operates the east end, and the Reading and Northern operates the line from Pittston to Taylor, as you can see here. The North Shore is based out of Northumberland and is owned by CRESSONA and is one of several short line operations owned by the same company, with several other operations throughout central Pennsylvania, all of which interchanging and operating via trackage rights over the NS. The line from Taylor to Steamtown is part of our very own Sunbury line, operated by the NS and the Delaware-Lackawanna Short Line. The track seen above the train is the Lehigh Valley Mountain Cutoff and what the PIF train uses in and out of Pittston Yard. As long as we're talking about the DL&W, I thought that fans might be interested to know that while popular competitor chime horns were available, their beloved railroad early on customized most of the E8 fleet with the rare Leslie Typhon model A125-200 3H chime tone air horn. This three-chime combination musically sounded a distinctive discord consisting of D sharp, the largest horn, B, and above middle C, an F note. Alas, by the late 1960s, all three H horns were replaced with the then ubiquitous Nathan Air Chime model M3 three-chime horn, the standard passenger road locomotive horn of 1960 merger partner, the Erie Railroad. Following the Bloom south to its end puts you smack dab at the Northumberland Yard at Front Street. Until this past summer, Northumberland was home to perhaps the most unique set of Pennsy position light signals in existence. Northumberland is in the middle of hardcore snake eyes or red-eye territory. Red-eye signals had the red aspect replaced with red lenses and left the center lamp out when displaying stop. One theory was to make the signals more readable through the fog-laden valleys along the Susquehanna River. In addition to the signals, Northumberland offers the railfans several railroad stations, a fair-sized yard, and the North Shore Railroad as we talked about. In fact, Norrie, as the Eastern Interlocking is called, is the former Pennsylvania Railroad yard that, in the beginning, was supposed to be the Pensy's main yard on the Buffalo line, but that honor wound up going to the yard at Enola instead. Across the Susquehanna River, which this northbound train is crossing over, is the town of Sunbury and CP Case, which is the switch to the Norfolk Southern River line and Sunbury line to Binghamton, New York, Buffalo, New York, New England, and Canada. The color light signal in the foreground is a sign of the times. PTC took hold between Harrisburg and Lock Haven in 2018 and 2019, spelling doom for the beloved Pennsylvania Railroad era position light signals that stood for more than 50 years. From Lock Haven north to Buffalo, all PRR position lights have gone dark, with many being removed. The track to the left of the signal is the Bloom. Just around the bend, about 1/2 mile, is the North Shore headquarters and shops. The North Shore has trackage rights via the Norfolk Southern Line, which allows the railroad to connect to the south with the Shamokin Valley Railroad at Sunbury, to the north and west with the Union County Industrial Railroad at Milton, the Lycoming Valley Railroad at Muncie and at Linden, and the Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad at Lock Haven. A little bit about Northumberland train operations. The Norfolk Southern changed the call times on the H43 crew based in Northumberland, which is the primary yard crew. As of August 2019, the H43 crew now goes on duty 7 days a week at 6:30 a.m., previously where it was 7 p.m. As a result of this change, the call times for many other crews have now been changed as well. The Northumberland to Enola turn train H53 is now called at 8 p.m. each day, where the previous call time was 5:30 a.m. This now makes the Enola turn a nighttime job from what was a reliable daylight train in both directions to and from Enola. Other changes include the K21 now being called at 11 a.m. and the K22 at 6 a.m. The H45 remains called at 5 p.m. On the North Shore side of things, the NSHR2 leaves Norrie Yard in Northumberland and works the Shamokin Valley Railroad to Shamokin to work Shamokin Carbons, which is a lot of Shamokin, and occasionally interchanges with the Reading and Northern at Mount Carmel. The NSHR1 works the Union County Industrial Railroad and its customers. Judging by its makeup, the train entering the yard is likely the H53 turn to and from Enola. This is the train that cost us the 10A and 11A trains that used to run back and forth between Binghamton and Northumberland. To our interest are the three perfectly matched EMD SD40-2s. The flexi-coil trucks and low-mounted ditch lights are easy identifiers of their big blue heritage. The one that's most important to us for this video is the 3347, which began its life as the Conrail number 6389 that was built in 1977. Like so many of today's SD40s on the NS, it did its time in our area during the first days of autumn in 2017, where we caught it in the blackness of night while doing some really early morning pre-dawn rail fanning. Just outside of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, about 100 miles north of the state capital of Harrisburg, is the former Reading Railroad Newberry Yard. Newberry played an important role in central Pennsylvania railroading, as it was home to the Pennsylvania Railroad, the New York Central, and the Reading Railroads. The yard was turned over to the Penn Central and later Conrail in 1976. Collectively named the Williamsport Cluster by Conrail, Newberry was sold off in August of 1996 to CRESSONA and is now operated by the Lycoming Valley Railroad. Newberry Yard is unique. Not that it is the largest yard between Harrisburg and Buffalo and was even larger back in the day, not that it once had 5 railroads serving it, not that it's currently over 100 acres and packed with rail lines. What makes the Newberry Yard so special is that this is the center of an economic solar system. In our case, the planets orbiting the yard are manufacturers or rail-to-truck transload sites. Why, just in Newberry alone, there are at least 20 companies around or within the yard. While in Williamsport, you might see one of Lycoming Valley Railroad's striking green and yellow locomotives, some with the B-Line service logo. Both the colors and the logo are remnants of the Reading Railroad that fell into Conrail in 1976. With all of the railroad losses that we've suffered over the last couple of years, some good news in 2019 is that we might be seeing some unit LNG trains moving through the area. I predicted this a few years back, and if it comes to fruition, it was made possible by a special permit that was issued by the PHMSA. That's the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. The special permit authorizes single-car shipments within 90 days of issuance up to 100-car unit trains upon submission of a detailed plan to increase shipments to multiple carloads. The permit allows for LNG unit trains to roll between the Marcellus shale fields around Wyalusing, Pennsylvania, to the Philadelphia, Gibbstown, New Jersey area loading terminals. And although this is speculation on my part, I believe this may be for easy export abroad. Fortress is investing a lot of money and innovation in this end-to-end LNG supply chain and will most likely make a lot more from it. One of the biggest benefits of this arrangement is that LNG by rail will become normalized. And as long as we're on the subject of moving LNG by rail, on the Union County Industrial Railroad, an LNG transload station was undergoing construction back in 2017. Later that year, I was told that black tank cars of liquid natural gas or maybe even propane were being spotted and unloaded at the station. The Union County Railroad is part of the North Shore Railroad system and operates on tracks that are owned by CRESSONA and the JRA between ALLENWOOD to the north and Watsontown to the south. These tracks once belonged to the Reading Railroad. According to the CRESSONA Joint Rail Authority, they'll be installing 7,700 feet of track into the Great Stream Commons north of ALLENWOOD to a currently undeveloped site. The estimated cost to construct the track is estimated at $4.4 million, and there may be 2 or 3 prospective tenants that are interested in getting rail service. The JRA hopes to secure a grant from the Rural Transit Assistance Program for the construction of this project. A sign at the entrance to the undeveloped Great Stream Commons land north of ALLENWOOD indicates that Moran Logistics has 166 acres of land and approved for 1.7 million square feet. Rail cars to that location will run past the old White Deer train station, which is now the home of the Railway Historical Society of Central Pennsylvania. Mike Widerquist, the plant manager from GAF of New Columbia, Pennsylvania, visited a meeting and gave his insight concerning the expansion of the plant and hiring of numerous workers. GAF is a manufacturing company based in Parsippany, New Jersey, that is primarily focused on the manufacturing of roofing materials for residential and commercial applications. The GAF acronym stands for General Aniline and Film and has roots dating back to the late 19th century. With 35 plants nationwide, the New Columbia location currently has 18 rail cars on site hauling in plastic pellets for use in making commercial roofing material, and they will be expanding the size of the plant as well as increasing the number of rail cars in the near future. Currently, they have 55 employees at this location that will also be increasing as well. A few videos back, we had a little bit of fun talking about how motive power and rolling stock move throughout the North American railroad network. You got a detailed look at the 4272 and the 8104 with the 9255 getting an honorable mention. But like the 4272 and the 8104, the 9255 is one of those deja vu locomotives that you and I have seen before. In a more glamorous role back in the springtime, the Lucky -9 was tasked to pull the FRA train over the line. From our area, the government-occupied train would travel south through Sunbury and down the Buffalo line to Harrisburg and the Lurgan branch to Hagerstown, Maryland, where it tied down for the night. From there, I assume it went south. In video T-169, we followed the Lehigh Valley from Irondale, Alabama, up the east coast to Enola Yard and up the Sunbury line past our location. In a surprising twist of fate, that exact same scenario was repeated on Christmas Eve, only this time it's the Nickel Plate Road Heritage Unit leading the entourage. So tell me, what are the chances of lightning striking twice? The Heritage locomotive is leading today, but if you remember what I showed you in video T-169, then you already know that this power came up from Alabama on the NS Manifest trains 16T and 18T with the NKP unit third in line. At Enola, the power made a U-turn, making the black and yellow beauty the leader of the pack on today's train 14R. Unfortunately, also just like last time, the DL found a way to follow the south side shot for me. Don't believe me? Just watch this. Fortunately for me, Christmas Eve wasn't my first encounter with the 8100. The first time it was trailing 3 of 3 on a northbound Bow, New Hampshire coal train number 532 in 2016. 2 weeks later, it led the special high and wide movement train 057 south to Sunbury and Northumberland. The big metal beams are on their way to the North Shore Railroad at Northumberland Yard. Upon clearing the switch at CP Case, this train will shove into Norrie, where the North Shore will take it back north on its own Bloom line to a power plant in Berwick, Pennsylvania. Our third time catching this engine was about a year later in 2017. Remember that pre-dawn rail fanning that I talked about when we were scoping out and discussing the 3347 back at Northumberland Yard? Now you know what I was rail fanning. Getting back to Christmas Eve 2019, it should be pointed out that it's fortunate for the DL that no one was riding the engineer side of that train, because as past ground level footage clearly shows, there is positively no safe clearance for man between the NS track and the DL track. And as long as we're talking about diesel deja vu, the Dash 944 CW number 9696 is also one of those locomotives that we've seen before. It was on a dismal and rainy day in August of 2017 when it slogged along the main line southbound at NESCOPECK, Pennsylvania, with, get this, the 8989 trailing second. How cool is that? Another familiar locomotive in the consist is the SD40-2 number 3474. Not an ex-Conrail unit, this locomotive has a much more colorful and interesting history. It's one of 24 SD40-2s on NS that I call the Blackboard Brigade. In video T-155 and T-167, we talked about the various origins of NS's nearly 500 SD40-2s that are currently on the roster. There's a group of 24 units that were acquired from the National Railway Equipment Company back in 2012 that have black number boards with white lettering instead of the usual white number boards with black lettering that are common to NS locomotives. The units, which are numbered number 3468 to 3491, are ex-Burlington Northern units that found their way through the BNSF merger and into First Union Rail Lease, that's FURX, and then on to the NRE. While at NRE, the units had their number boards replaced with their new NS numbers prior to being delivered, resulting in the color reversal. And although not relevant to this video, it's noteworthy to mention that 2 of the 24 units, the 3487 and the 3488, were built as Colorado and Southern units. And like so many other locomotives that we talked about on this channel, the 3347 found itself a fixture at Taylor Yard in 2015 through 2017. There's a separate video that's been started that goes into more detail about the Blackboard Brigade diesels coming to you at some point. I won't say when this time because it never seems to work out that way. One of my New Year's resolutions. Make sure that you hit the like button because it really helps the channel out when you do that. And make sure that you hit the bell for notifications when you subscribe to the channel, which I know you're going to do. For Trains 21, call me AC.